Mystery solved. Someone brought an unusual creature 5 years ago and just this week brought it to the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History.
Yeah, that's right. Now, this creature was found in Mexico back in 2011, and since then it's been all over the internet and in television, and it's been known as the Mexican fairy.
Fairies are mythical creatures that have inspired legends and folklore for centuries. But what if the magic doesn't end on the pages of storybooks? There are real-life encounters with fairies well documented, captured on camera, and witnessed by people all over the world.
What is it?
I don't know. Oh my God!
Ugh.
From scary skeletons in remote forests to beautiful creatures caught flying on security footage, are these encounters evidence that we are not alone on the planet? And where do fairies really live? Join us as we expose 15 real fairies caught on camera and seen in real life. Fairy skeleton. In 2017, explorer James Corwin found something shocking in the remote Rocky Mountains. While hiking near a falcon's nest, he spotted a tiny skeleton in the twigs. It was only a few inches long but looked just like a human skeleton, with a skull and thin, long limbs. The bones were lightweight and hollow, and no one knew what creature they belonged to. Corwin took the remains back to North Carolina and showed them to experts in biology and anthropology. Some thought it was fake, but others believed it might be from an unknown species, maybe even a real fairy. Corwin is still trying to solve the mystery, spending his time studying the bones and their origins, and if that's not strange enough, just wait until you hear about a shocking 2022 encounter. Mysterious bird. Just 2 years ago, a woman had a strange and unsettling experience that left her shaken. While at home with her dog, she noticed the dog acting oddly, almost as if it sensed something invisible in the shadows. Ignoring the dog's hesitation, she stepped into her backyard. Suddenly, a tiny creature, no bigger than a hummingbird, zipped past her face. Its shiny, rainbow-colored wings made it seem magical and unreal. Startled, she ducked to protect herself, but the creature vanished as quickly as it appeared. In the days after, she searched online and found many stories about fairy-like beings. Some described playful encounters, while others warned of darker, more sinister creatures. But the true identity of what she saw is still a mystery. The New Addington Fairy. Let's go back to the summer of 2007, when Phyllis Bacon from New Addington, England, had a strange experience. One quiet afternoon, she was in her garden and took several photos of the plants around her. Later, as she looked through the pictures, she noticed something shocking, a tiny winged figure hovering in the background. The creature was only a few inches tall and looked like a classic fairy, with delicate wings and a magical glow. Bacon began researching and diving into books and websites about fairy folklore. While some dismissed the image as just an insect or a trick of the light, others speculated she might have captured a rare or unknown type of butterfly. John Rutledge's Fairies. In the Welsh countryside, musician John Rutledge caught a fairy while walking near his home. He was walking near a green field when he noticed a flutter of wings and turned to see 7 tiny, translucent beings hovering in midair. Their wings caught the sunlight, and their slender limbs gave them a strikingly human-like appearance. Rutledge quickly took photos and posted them online. Many people started attacking him as a manipulator, but Rutledge stood by what he saw despite the backlash. Inspired by the encounter, he launched a podcast about mythical creatures and now advocates for fairies, encouraging others to share their mysterious experiences. Tinkerbell in the Garden. In the charming town of Towcester, Northampton, Lisa Wildgoose, a hairdresser with a passion for photography, stumbled upon something incredible. While on a family photo shoot in Bluebell Woods, she was captivated by the beautiful wildflowers and decided to return later with her camera. As she reviewed the pictures she had taken, Lisa spotted something strange in the corner of one photo. A tiny figure, no bigger than a thimble, with delicate wings and a magical glow. When she showed the discovery to her young daughters, Mia and Madison, they were convinced they had seen a real fairy. Rossendale Fairies. John Hyatt, a professor at Manchester Metropolitan University, shared a set of images that stunned people. The high-resolution photos in Lancashire's Rossendale Valley showed tiny winged creatures glowing with an otherworldly light. Using advanced photography equipment, Hyatt captured these beings as they seemed to float and dance in the air, defying logic. He spent countless hours studying the valley, patiently awaiting the perfect opportunity to document this strange phenomenon. When the images were displayed at the Whitaker Museum, they sparked widespread debate about whether they were real or just illusions. Despite criticism, Hyatt stands firm, urging people to keep an open mind about the possibility that these glowing beings are more than camera tricks. That is not all. Orbs and fairies. In a quiet suburb of Auckland, New Zealand, a woman known online as CDB4 stumbled upon something remarkable. While reviewing her outdoor security camera footage, she spotted a glowing winged figure darting through the night sky, followed by swirling orbs of light. Speechless at what she saw, she shared the footage on her YouTube channel, sparking a heated debate. Some viewers dismissed it as insects or dust reflecting the camera's light, while others believed it might be objective evidence of fairies. Determined to uncover the truth, she carefully analyzed the footage frame by frame. The mystery remains unsolved despite various theories, from glowing insects to supernatural phenomena. We are about to reveal something mind-blowing found somewhere in Asia. Keep watching to find out. Guardians of the Forest. In the lush jungles of Thailand, National Geographic explorer Brett Madden found a mummified creature that looks like a fairy. Known locally as the Narafon, or Thai flower pod, this tiny, measured 3 inches long, was hidden among an ancient tree's roots. Its delicate features, complete with wings and a fragile form, bore a striking resemblance to fairies from folklore. Thai legends describe the Narafon as protectors of the forest and messengers of the jungle's spirits. The creature Madden found was authenticated through X-rays, proving it wasn't a hoax. This remarkable discovery reignited global interest in the mythology surrounding these mysterious beings. Fairy in a parking garage. A strange video shared by YouTuber Jessica Pfizer has left viewers both amazed and confused. The footage of a minor, mysterious creature landing on the floor, scurrying briefly, and disappearing between parked cars was recorded in a parking garage. Since the beast does not walk on 4 legs, people ruled out typical animals like squirrels or rats. Some even joked it could be a penguin, but that seemed highly unlikely. The creature's true identity remains unknown to date. Do you think this was just a disguise or an actual mysterious fairy? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section before we continue. Fairy or dragonfly? In 2008, YouTuber H.H. Mekien captured a video that continues to stir the debate about the existence of fairies. H.H.'s children noticed a strange insect resting on a tree branch during a simple family outing. At first glance, it looked like a dragonfly, its shaking wings glowing in the sunlight. But as it began to move, its body elongated and its wings shifted, revealing a tiny humanoid shape. This transformation was caught in remarkable detail, leaving H.H. and his children in awe. The video quickly went viral, but skeptics dismissed it as a fake. For believers, however, it was a magical moment where myth crossed into reality. H.H. sought expert opinions but remained convinced he had witnessed something extraordinary. Trail cam fairy. Deep in the Missouri wilderness, a YouTuber called My Slice of Heaven Outdoors recorded a mysterious event that has puzzled viewers. While reviewing footage from his trail camera, set up to monitor his property, he noticed a tiny winged creature darting into view just as dawn broke. The being, about the size of a hummingbird, had glowing, shimmering wings that sparkled in the early light. The internet exploded when he shared the footage online. Some were convinced that the creature resembled a fairy from folklore because of its beautiful, magical appearance. Others dismissed it as a bird caught in the camera's light. Whether mythical or not, the sighting has left many shocked at the possibility of finding more mysteries hidden in Missouri's forests. If you see this unbelievable, the next fairy on the list sounds more mysterious. Mexican fairy. In the summer of 2017, a resident of Guadalajara, Mexico, stumbled upon a lifeless, winged humanoid creature on their patio. No more significant than a child's hand, the being bore striking similarities to the fairies of legend, With a slender, pale body and beautifully detailed wings, its tiny hands and feet were fully formed. News of the find quickly spread.
The legs on the feet.
Okay.
But this creature have another.
Attracting attention from people who believed in cryptozoologists and fairy hunters worldwide. People who believed the story argued that it belonged to an undiscovered species. But critics say the lack of scientific evidence and similar sightings in the area means it was all a hoax. The fairy in the garden. In 2017, a Reddit user shared an interesting story. While gardening, they found what appeared to be a beautiful doll. It was a fairy dressed in green with flowing blonde hair. Thinking it would make a great gift for their sibling, they reached to pick it up. But then, something unexpected happened. The doll came to life. With fluttering wings, the tiny creature sprang up and vanished into the garden. The user swore it was a real fairy, woken from its slumber. Was this a genuine encounter with the magical, or just a fake story? No one has an answer for sure, but another interesting story that will leave you speechless was reported in Russia. Fairy captured in Russia. This security camera captured footage that has left everyone in Russia startled. The video was shot in a garden, where an unusual creature suddenly emerges from the foliage. Many called it a fake because of its small size and erratic movements. They also argued that it was probably created through digital manipulation. But believers see the creature as potential evidence of a real fairy, pointing to its humanoid shape and translucent wings. Russia's rich folklore includes tales of small winged beings, and this sighting has reignited interest in such legends. While debates rage over the video's authenticity, it remains a compelling mystery that invites viewers to consider what might genuinely be living in the natural world. Cocoa Puff Fairy. This video was posted by YouTuber Cocoa Puff. A home security camera captured the footage during the dead of night and showed a small, winged creature fluttering near the lens. At first glance, it looks like an insect or bird reflecting the camera's light. But when the footage is slowed down, you will observe details resembling a humanoid figure and deliberate movements. Some viewers commented that it might be a spider creating a visual trick, while others saw it as proof of something more mysterious. Coco's channel has become a vocal point for the existence of fairies and other mythical creatures, and he has even launched a podcast dedicated to explaining the mysteries of the natural world. Social media is full of posts from people around the globe who claim to have had similar encounters with fairy-like beings and who are eager to share their stories and experiences. Thank you for staying with us. Which of the fairy stories do you find the realest? The tomb in the Kidron Valley. In the Kidron Valley, near some famous religious sites like the Garden of Gethsemane and the Church of All Nations, there is a holy tomb that many Eastern Christians have revealed belongs to the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. After being sealed for thousands of years, the world was expectant of what would be found inside.
Well, I think that's it, isn't it? That's not the entrance to the tomb. We're in the tomb.
When it was finally opened, it was completely empty. The books that claimed the Virgin Mary did not ascend to heaven have now been proven wrong, while the Christian beliefs that Mary went up to heaven with her body alive and intact seem to explain why no trace of her was left in the tomb. These Christian beliefs call this the Assumption, but as if to spice things up, there are some strange differences in how each Christian belief thinks about Mary's life and death, especially Catholicism and Eastern Christianity, and they are so contrasting that it's a very interesting thing to talk about.
We're standing outside the Church of the Sepulchre of St. Mary here in Jerusalem, the place where it was traditionally believed that Mary's Assumption took place.
First off, Catholics believe Mary never died in the first place, while Eastern Christians think she did die, but was buried and then came back to life on the third day, just like Jesus. After that, she went up to heaven. The Assumption of Mary is one of 4 important beliefs about Mary. The Pope, Pius XII, officially announced this teaching on November 1, 1950, in a document called Munificentissimus Deus. This teaching is connected to another important belief, the Immaculate Conception, which says Mary was born without sin. Both of these beliefs are based on the idea that Mary is the mother of Jesus, who is considered the Son of God. The Assumption of Mary doesn't specifically say whether Mary died or not, but rather that she was taken up to heaven. The Eastern Orthodox Church has a similar belief, called the Dormition of the Mother of God, which means falling asleep. This belief is not considered a dogma or official teaching in the Eastern Orthodox Church, but it is still an important part of their tradition. Pope Pius XII wrote a letter called Munificentissimus Deus, where he said that he hoped believing in Mary's Assumption would make people's belief in their own resurrection stronger. He wants people to know that just like Mary's body was taken up to heaven, our bodies will also be resurrected and taken up to heaven. There are different stories about where Mary's Assumption happened, and we'll get into that later in the video. But before that, did you know that around the 7th century, a new story circulated about Mary's Assumption? This story says that one of Jesus' apostles, often called Thomas, wasn't there when Mary died, but when he finally arrived, they opened her tomb again and found it empty, except for the clothes she was wearing. This story was later told and retold, and some versions even say that Mary dropped her belt down from heaven to Thomas as proof that she was taken up to heaven. This story is shown in many paintings of Mary's Assumption. The teaching about Mary's Assumption spread throughout the Christian world, and people started celebrating it as early as the 5th century. The Emperor Maurice made it an official holiday in the Eastern Roman Empire around the year 600. Some scholars think that the stories about Mary's Assumption and Dormition, or falling asleep, can be traced back to ancient Christian books that aren't even part of the Bible we use today. Some scholars who study the Bible think that a group of Jewish Christians in Jerusalem knew stories about the end of Mary's life, which were passed down through word of mouth. They believe that these stories were shared during the time of the apostles or soon after, and that they are based on real events. By looking at these oral traditions, they are trying to show that the stories about Mary's Assumption and Dormition are true. But another scholar named Shoemaker points out that these stories are very different from each other and don't come from one tradition. Instead, they come from many different sources and have gone as far as evolving over time. Even the scholars who believe in the oral traditions agree that the belief in Mary's Assumption as we know it today is the result of a long process of development, rather than the original story itself. The story of Mary's Assumption first appeared in a book called the Liber Requiae Mariae, or Book of Mary's Repose, which was written in the 2nd or 3rd century. This book is not considered entirely trustworthy, and its beliefs about Mary are quite different from what most Christians believe. The old stories about Mary's Assumption are not clear and don't all agree on what happened. Some stories support the belief that Mary was taken up to heaven, while others don't. According to Stephen J. Shoemaker, there is no evidence that people believed in Mary's Assumption before the 5th century. The only exception is that Epiphanius of Salamis tried to find out how Mary's life ended in the 4th century, but he couldn't find any reliable information. Now here's where things get quite funny. It turns out the New Testament doesn't say anything about how Mary's life ended, and the early Christians didn't write any accounts of her death. Even though Epiphanius couldn't find any trustworthy tradition about how Mary's life ended, his writings show that people were already disagreeing about what happened to her. He mentioned 3 different beliefs. Some people thought Mary died a peaceful death, others thought she died as a martyr, and others believed she didn't die at all. Epiphanius also wrote that Mary was like Elijah, who was taken up to heaven without dying.
Mary was assumed into heaven at the end of her earthly life. She was taken up body and soul into heaven.
This idea was repeated in later writings that aren't considered entirely trustworthy, like De Obitu Est Domini and De Transitu Virginis, which were probably written in the 5th century. Other writers like Dionysius the Areopagite and Gregory of Tours also shared similar stories. These writings helped spread the belief in Mary's Assumption, which was considered unofficial until the 6th century, but by the 8th century, the belief had become widely accepted, and John of Damascus wrote that Mary died in the presence of the apostles, but when they got to her tomb, they were in for a shock. Her tomb was found empty when they opened it, leading them to believe her body was taken up to heaven. The celebration of Mary's Dormition, which was brought from the Eastern Church, arrived in the Western Church in the 7th century. Over time, the name of the celebration changed to the Assumption in some religious calendars in the 9th century. In the same century, Pope Leo IV made the feast day more important by adding a vigil and an octave, which are special religious ceremonies. Later, Pope Nicholas I placed the Assumption on the same level as Christmas and Easter, which are two of the most important holidays in the Christian calendar. Then, in the 12th century, a German nun named Elizabeth of Schonau had visions of Mary and Jesus that greatly influenced the Western Church's belief in Mary's Assumption. Later, Pope Benedict XIV declared that believing in Mary's Assumption was a reasonable opinion, and that not believing in it would be disrespectful to God. On May 1, 1950, a man named Gilles Bours, who claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary, told Pope Pius XIV a message that he said Mary wanted him to share with the Pope. The message was about the Assumption of Mary, which is the belief that Mary was taken up to heaven. Pope Pius XII had been praying for a sign to confirm that this belief was true, and he took Gilles' message as that sign. 6 months later, on November 1, 1950, the Pope officially declared the Assumption of Mary as a dogma, which is basically a belief that is considered absolutely true by the Catholic Church. What makes the whole thing more complicated is that not all Catholics believe the same thing about Mary's Assumption. Keep watching because your belief might be one of them. More beliefs of Mary's ascension into heaven. Some Catholics believe that Mary died before she was taken up to heaven, but they also believe that she was brought back to life by a miracle before being assumed. This belief is called the mortalistic interpretation. There are also some Catholics who believe that Mary was taken up to heaven without dying first, which is called the immortalistic interpretation. Others believe that she died and was then taken up to heaven, which is called the mortalistic interpretation. The last two beliefs are allowed in the Catholic Church, and Eastern Catholics celebrate the feast day as the Dormition, but many signs in Catholic traditions, such as prayers, stories, and art, suggest that the mortalistic interpretation is more widely accepted. Remember that Saint Pope John Paul II publicly expressed the mortalistic belief. The Catholic Church celebrates the Feast of the Assumption on August 15th, while the Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches celebrate the Dormition of the Mother of God on the same date. Before the feast, Eastern Christians fast for 14 days to honor Mary's life and death. They believe that Mary died a natural death, but that her soul was taken up by Christ immediately. They also believe that her body was resurrected after her death and taken up into heaven, where she awaits the general resurrection of all believers. Protestant beliefs about Mary's Assumption vary, with some groups closer to Catholicism believing in a bodily assumption, while most Protestants do not. In the Anglican tradition, there is also a range of beliefs, with some accepting the Assumption, others rejecting it, and some considering it a matter of indifference. Although the doctrine was largely absent from Anglican worship for many years, it experienced a resurgence in the 20th century among Anglo-Catholic groups who celebrated it under different names. Today, different Anglican churches celebrate a feast day on August 15th, but with different names and focuses. The Church of England honors the Blessed Virgin Mary without specifying the Assumption, while the Scottish Episcopal Church simply calls it Mary the Virgin. In the United States, the Episcopal Church celebrates Saint Mary the Virgin, Mother of our Lord Jesus Christ, while other provinces, like the Anglican Church of Canada, mark the day as the falling asleep of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which is another way of referring to the Dormition. For hundreds of years, the tomb of Jesus Christ in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem has been covered with a layer of marble, but in October 2016, a team of scientists finally got to see what was underneath. They were working on a project to fix up the tomb in the church, and they were excited to learn more about this important place. When the scientists removed the marble, they found a lot of extra material underneath. They were surprised by how much was there. Now they get to study the original rock that Jesus' body was laid on, according to Christian belief. That's not all. According to the Christian faith, Jesus Christ was killed by the Romans and then placed in a special spot in a cave. This spot was like a shelf, carved out of the rock of the cave. This event happened either in the year 30 or 33. Christians believe that Jesus came back to life after he died, and when some women went to visit his body a few days later, they found that it was gone. The shelf where Jesus was placed is now inside a small building called the Edicule, which is like a little house. This building was rebuilt between 1808 and 1810 after it was damaged in a fire. Since 2017, a team of scientists from Greece has been working to fix up the edicule and the tomb inside it. They are being led by a woman named Professor Antonia Maropoulou, who is in charge of the project. Scientists are very excited because they finally get to see and study a very important place that has been hidden under a thick layer of marble for so long. By studying the original rock of the tomb, scientists can learn more about what the tomb looked like a long time ago and how it has changed over time. They can also learn about how people have been honoring and respecting this place for a very long time. The scientists are using special tools and techniques to study the tomb and take detailed pictures and notes. This will allow people from all over the world to see and learn about the tomb as if they were actually there. The leader of the project, Professor Antonia Maropoulou, says that they are at a very important moment in their work and that the special ways they are used to study the tomb will help everyone learn more about this unique and special place. The church closed early. So many people who were visiting from other places were standing outside, confused, because they couldn't get in. Inside the church, there were lots of different people, like workers wearing yellow hats, monks wearing brown robes, priests wearing black hats, and others wearing special hoods. They were all gathered around the special tomb called the edicule, trying to get a look inside. The tomb is usually dimly lit by candles, but this time it was brightly lit, showing off details that are usually hard to see. The special tomb is surrounded by a fancy building that was built in the 1800s. Right now, that building is covered in beams and safety tape. Inside the tomb, the special slab of marble that covers the important bench had been pulled away from the wall. This slab is about as big as a door and is made of white marble with a smooth finish. Underneath the marble slab, there was a stone surface that was a gray-beige color. When someone asked what it was, the person in charge of taking care of the tomb said they weren't sure yet, but it was time to use special tools to figure it out. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is also called the Church of the Resurrection, is a very important place for many different groups of Christians. 6 groups take care of the church, and 3 of them, the Greek Orthodox Church, the Roman Catholic Church, and the Armenian Orthodox Church, are in charge of making big decisions. The other 3 groups, the Coptic, Ethiopian Orthodox, and Syriac communities, also have a say in what happens at the church. The church has some special areas that all the groups use together, and one of those areas is the tomb where Jesus is said to have been buried. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and another church called Mary's Tomb, which was built around the same time in the 4th century AD, are visited by many people every year. The special building that houses Mary's tomb has been destroyed and rebuilt many times over the years. The building that stands today was constructed by a group of Franciscan friars in the 14th century. The Greek Orthodox Church is the main caretaker of the building, but they share some responsibilities with other Christian groups. To reach Mary's tomb, visitors must go down a long staircase that is over 1,000 years old. On the way down, they pass by 2 smaller chapels, one dedicated to Mary's husband, Joseph, and another dedicated to her parents. When they reach the tomb, they have to duck down to enter the small space. Inside, they are surrounded by beautiful religious art and icons from the Middle Ages. The atmosphere is peaceful and reverent, as pilgrims come to pray and light candles. Before scientists finally found Mary's resting place, there were several spots believed to be where she was buried, and you won't believe how some traditions have justified their claims. Some places where people believed the Virgin Mary was buried. There are different beliefs about the tomb of the Virgin Mary. The Turkmen Karaits believe that Mary's tomb is in a town called Mary in Turkmenistan, which used to be named Mari. This belief comes from a tradition called Nestorian. Another belief comes from Christians in a place called Nineveh in northern Iraq. They think Mary's tomb is near a city called Erbil, and they link it to a mosque in a city called Mosul. The Ahmadiyya movement thinks Mary's tomb is in a town called Muri in Pakistan. They believe her tomb is now in a special place called Mai Mari da Ashtan. But if these places claim she died in their tombs, how did she get there? There are many stories and legends about the Virgin Mary's travels after Jesus' death. Remember the one involving Thomas we talked about that was circulating sometime around the 7th century? Well, the story didn't end there. It claimed Mary went to India with Thomas the Apostle, where she passed away in a town called Mari, which is now part of Turkmenistan. According to this story, Thomas was the only apostle who saw Mary's body rise to heaven, while the others were taken to Jerusalem to see her die. The story says Thomas was left in India until after Mary's first burial, when he was suddenly taken to her tomb and saw her body rise to heaven, leaving behind only her belt. The other apostles didn't believe Thomas when he told them what he saw, but later they found Mary's tomb empty, except for her belt. This story was often told with drawings and paintings during the Middle Ages and early Renaissance. There's another legend that says Mary traveled to the Middle East and died in a town called Mari, which, remember, is in modern-day Turkmenistan. There's another story about the Virgin Mary's life that says she went to a place called Ephesus towards the end of her life, around 3745 AD. Share your opinions with us in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen and you will enjoy it.